Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back into Morons and a Mic. I am Moron number one, Cody, and with me as always is Moron number two, Ted. Let's talk about that game last night.
Let's talk about that game last night. Puka Nakua announced loudly that he is back. He was supposed to be limited, and he was. He only had like a 54% snap share, I think it was. But when he was on the field, he had a crazy target rate of like 40%.
Mhm.
His yards per route run was like 4.8, which is his career high for a game. So yeah, he had a pretty good game. Puka Nakua is still good. So I mean,
And we liked what we saw with Cooper Cup as well, getting in on the action, getting that touchdown.
yep, he's not going to get traded. I don't think because now the Rams are 3-4. They're not that far behind in the division. They've won 2 games in the last 5 days, as they mentioned on the broadcast last night.
Yeah.
So I don't think that Cooper Cup's going anywhere. I don't think Matt Stafford's going anywhere. I know that was a rumor, but it wasn't somebody that I would particularly trust to put that out there. So
I saw that as well. Yeah. As for the Rams, I think Colby Parkinson is still a stash because tight end is still weak.
mhm.
But with Cup and Nakua back, I wouldn't play him. Um, However, if they get injured again or if Cup gets traded, I'm bumping Parkinson back up.
Let's talk about. I have one note about the Vikings real quick because for the most part, the Vikings are who we all knew they were. Justin Jefferson's awesome. Addison
Mhm.
gets his a little bit. You know, that's all normal. But coming into the year, there was that concern that Ty Chandler was going to take some work from Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones had like 46 snaps, I think it was last night, and Ty Chandler had 2. So, I mean, it's been trending that way, but last night was the most extreme example that we've seen yet, where if Jones is healthy, he's the guy. Like,
Yeah.
there's no concern about Chandler
And
at all.
even on those two snaps, Chandler didn't get any carries.
No.
So, um, my one thing for the Vikings is Jordan Addison needs to start getting the ball a little bit more, um, or he's not going to be startable in any format.
No.
Uh, I think they got robbed last night with that call in the end zone, but
They did, but they were still down 8 with a minute and 20 seconds left, or whatever it would have been from their own 20, I think.
There were a couple iffy calls earlier in the game that
There absolutely
wiped
were.
out some third and longs.
But they also
Too.
they didn't play particularly well last
No,
night.
no.
And I think part of it, the Rams played the run really, really well. And I think that maybe that the Vikings should have been a little bit more pass heavy. And also, it was incredibly stupid. If you're on your own 2 yard line right before half, and I know they mentioned this at halftime last night, but I mentioned it even before they did to Ivy. If you're going to try and score, go try and fucking score. Like, throw the ball, try and score. You have your timeouts. If you're not going to try and score, if you're going to try and run the ball from your own 2 with 30 seconds left in the half, just knee it out. Go to halftime. Don't risk somebody getting hurt. And
Yeah.
sure enough, we saw Christian Darrisaw get hurt on that play, and he is their most important offensive lineman. One of their most important offensive players in general. I would put him probably behind Jefferson and, I don't know, Darnold maybe. And the only reason I'm saying Darnold is because McCarthy's already hurt.
Yeah. They don't have anybody else. All right, let's move on to the Jets and Patriots coming up. I'll let you go with this one.
Well, I'm curious to see how Drake May does against his first really good defense that he faces. I know the Jets aren't as good a defense as last year, but they are still a good defense, and the defenses that Drake May's faced thus far really bad. Drake May's done well. I think that it should continue. Like, I think he'll play well still,
Hmm.
but just the Patriots in general, they don't have a lot of help. So I'm curious when we start seeing the younger guys, because again, I know we've talked about this before. The Patriots got to figure out what they got. Kayshon Boutte, he's had some moments, but I don't know if you saw, but he was complaining in the media about this yesterday, I think it was, about how he has to complain to get the ball. And it's like, dude, you're not good enough to be shitting on your team in public relations meetings.
Yeah.
Like, you're not there.
You're not that guy. You're not that guy.
So, but they need to figure out what they've got in him, Javon Baker. They need to figure out what they've got in Jalen Polk, if he's salvageable, because it's been rough this year, man. Like, I thought Jalen Polk was I didn't know if he was like an exciting prospect, but I figured he'd be very reliable. He had good hands at Washington. He was a reliable route runner. He's been none of those things in the NFL. He's had some of the worst hands in the league. He's It's just been bad. It's just been
Yeah. Um, this isn't fantasy related, but I think this is my upset of the week, which I don't know how much of an upset it is when the Jets are only one game better than the Patriots, who are what, 1-6.
Yep.
Um, their coach Gerard Mayo came out, called them all soft. And I don't know. There's something about that screams in my head, like, "Hey, we're gonna see that defense that we saw in Week 1 come back." So I don't know. The Jets' offensive line is trash.
Yes.
And I think the Pats could squeak out a win here.
I could definitely see it. And here's the other part. Sometimes we get these like really dramatic teams that it all could fall apart like
Hmm.
really quickly. It's like powder keg. The Jets are that team this year.
Yeah, and I think Hunter Henry's going to be a safe start in this one as well.
Yeah,
So
I think so. But yeah, you're still starting your Jets. You're still starting Devontae Adams. You're still starting Garrett Wilson. I think that'll help Garrett Wilson. Whereas in the first matchup, he got followed by Christian Gonzalez for most of the game, and coverage was rolled his way and stuff.
yeah,
It'll be harder to do that with the presence of Devontae Adams. So I feel better about Garrett Wilson in this game than I did the first time those two teams played.
right. All right, moving on to the Eagles and Bengals. Go ahead.
All right, this is going to be a fun one. Both offenses are playing pretty well, and neither defense is anything to really write home about. And I know that the Eagles had this great game against the Giants last week, and they sacked Daniel Jones like 7 times. I get that. That's great. But it's Daniel Jones, and it's the Giants' offensive line, who are
Yeah.
bad. Like, they're bad. They're not playing Daniel Jones now. They're playing a real team, a real quarterback in Joe Burrow. So
Well,
I
the
do,
real quarterback.
a real boy. So I do feel like the Eagles are probably going to do everything they can, just like every other team this year, to take away Jamar Chase. I think T. Higgins is going to have another big game.
Keep
We're
feeding
probably
him.
keep feeding him. That's right. We're probably going to see more Chase Brown over Zach Moss, and then from the Eagles side, I'm really curious because we know for the most part what we're getting with the Eagles. Saquon Barkley is going to be terrific in most games. AJ Brown is a smash play. I think one of the top 3 receivers in the league rest of season because of how they use him. Well, what does that mean for Devontae Smith? Because we were promised an offense that would be different than the last couple years, and thus far it's been pretty much the same. It's AJ Brown, go balls, and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not saying Devontae Smith isn't going to be a good player, but for him to pay off his ADP, he needs to be a lot more involved in this offense. And with how they're calling it, and it seems at this point, given that it's year 3 of this, or year 4, I can't remember, but year 3 or 4, that Jalen Hurts is just this guy now. The improvement that we saw for him going from college to NFL, and then from his first to his second season in the league, it seems like he's hit a plateau. He's a good player,
Yeah.
but he struggles to read out concepts. And if you can't read it out, like that's why they use AJ Brown just basically on go balls. I don't know if you saw his route chart for this last game. It was a shit ton of go balls and not much else. Which he's AJ Brown, like that's fine,
Yeah.
do it. But for a guy like Devontae Smith, that doesn't necessarily work out as well.
Right. And I agree. AJ Brown's going to be a smash play in this matchup. But speaking of improper usage, in my opinion, I'm keeping an eye on Chase Brown. Yeah, last week was Cleveland. Found it a little difficult to run on them, but he's only hit a high of 80 yards in a game. And other than that, we're looking at 62, 53, 46, 44, and you add in 2 catches per game.
Now I do
If you're
feel
when your defense is as bad as the Bengals defense is, you want to limit their time on the field. And typically you do that by leaning on the run game.
until the like yes and no, because passing is more efficient and leads to more points. That's why teams run when they're ahead and they pass more when they're behind. I think that's what's happening here is the Bengals have had to throw the ball in order to score points because they
Yeah.
need to score points because their defense is going to allow the points. I think it's a function of that mostly.
Okay. All right. Talk to me about the Packers and Jags.
So the
Your wife's
Packers,
gonna love this game.
yeah, the Packers have a dream matchup. That Jags defense is so bad. You can run on them, you can throw on them, you can do anything you want against the Jags defense, and they're gonna provide you with not even like token resistance. You're gonna see a linebacker in the middle field go, "What? No, stop! Oh, he's gone." You know? And
He's gonna run up to tackle him and just lay down.
he's like, "Do you need assistance to the end zone, Josh Jacobs? Do you need me to help you?" Yeah, so it's going to be I think it's a great game, great matchup for all of Green Bay's guys. There's so many receivers and so many mouths to feed. I'm not sure if we get like a huge game from any one guy in particular, but one of these guys is going to have at least a touchdown, 2 touchdowns, something like that. Like
Right.
one of these guys is going to have a big game. But I think the yardage is where we're going to see kind of a cap. I don't think anybody goes over like 90 yards. You know what I mean? It's just too many mouths to feed. I think Josh Jacobs has a big game because the Packers defense has been a lot better the last couple of weeks, and the Jags offense is Trevor Lawrence to Brian Thomas Jr. And if you can take that away, it pretty much doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, I don't know who's more hated by their coach, Kendra Miller or Travis Etienne, who is now downgraded to a game time decision. Man, if I have anyone else, I'm just gonna bench Etienne for probably the rest of the season unless he gets traded.
I
Um,
I wouldn't even play Bigsby in this matchup because we talked about this on the Monday podcast where Bigsby's not a pass catcher.
hmm,
He's a game script dependent back. Like he needs the Jags to be close or ahead for him to get his carries. Because again, when you're down multiple scores, you don't run the ball much. You throw to try and catch up. Well, Bigsby is a nothing in the pass game. Like they would rather use Dearness Johnson over Bigsby in the pass game, as we've seen in previous games.
in the year of our Lord 2024, why are we still running out the Ernest Johnson?
It's because the NFL loves its same cast of characters as we see with Sterling Shepard. I mean, that poor guy's been through so much, and yet keeps popping up.
He's gonna be rolling through routes on wheelchair.
Yeah, and he'll make some catches too. We'll
Yeah,
be
he
like,
will.
"Oh my god, he's still in the league!
Yeah. So
Wow!"
this is where I differ from you. I'm starting Bigsby with confidence this week, just because Green Bay's pass defense um, is way better than their run defense. The run defense has given up the ninth most yards per carry in the league. So I'm starting Tank with confidence that he'll get maybe a chunk play or two out of that and a touchdown.
Yeah, for me, it really does come down to just the Packers' offense is so good, and the Jaguars' defense is so not good that I can definitely see it getting out of hand quickly.
Yeah. And
If the
if Peterson wants to keep his job, he needs to keep Lawrence from turning the ball over to that ball hawking secondary
yes,
that Green Bay has. The
over under over under
fourth
one and a half
most
more,
intercept or fourth best ball hawking defense in the league. Fourth best against the pass.
over under 1.5 picks for Lawrence in this game.
Over.
Yeah, same.
I think he goes for one touchdown, two interceptions.
Ivy benched Stafford for Lawrence in our dynasty league.
What a silly goose. And she's a Packers fan,
I
so that
know.
that doesn't make any sense. Who do I play? Stafford with Puka Nakua and Cooper Cup back, or Trevor Lawrence against the really good pass defense and a
She
defense that likes to sack the quarterback. And the
overthought this one.
ah,
Hey, keep in mind though that she's actually watching these episodes now, so we can't talk too much crap on her.
oh, I know. All right, let's move away from trashing Ivy's decisions and move on to the Titans and Lions. Talk
It
to
is
me.
always fun trashing her decisions, though.
It is, really is, because I don't have to live with her.
That's true. Well, I mean, I'm the bad decision she made, so we can trash that decision too.
Exactly, but I don't have to worry about her stabbing me in my sleep.
Oh, I don't worry about it. I just wouldn't wake up. Not a big deal.
Fair enough. You wake up dead.
Yeah, in a bed.
All right, talk to me about Titans and Lions.
All right, so I'm curious. What I'm tracking here is have the Titans checked out because the Titans defense has been carrying that team for the whole season, but at a certain point, these great defenses, or really good defense, because I don't know if I'd put them in great yet, but these really good defenses, if they are getting as little help from the offense as this Titans defense has this year, generally you see some slippage in play because guys start to play unsound football. They don't play gaps. They try to make big splash plays, which gets them out of position and leads to big plays and stuff like that. Against the Lions, that's a death sentence. Like they are more equipped than anybody else in the league probably to take advantage of that. Um, I, I think even if they don't slip though, this Lions offense is going to get its points because this Lions offense has been really really good this whole year.
Hmm.
And the concern I have for the Lions offense is I'm going to bump Gibbs and Montgomery down just a little bit. You're still starting them as you should, but the ceiling for their games is probably not as high as what we saw like last week with Gibbs. The Titans' run defense is really good. They're gettable through the air. I think that Goff has another big game. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown has another big game. Um, with Jameson Williams out, I am curious to see who the third receiver is and if Laporta's targets bump back up because his target share through 6 games has been just. I think he's got like 18 targets or 20 targets or something through 6 games.
You stole my point that I was gonna make. You
Good.
jerk. Uh, I'm not bumping Gibbs down at all. Just because of everything he gets receiving wise with Jameson Williams out, I'm going to keep him right there. Maybe bump Montgomery down a little bit, but they're going to have so many scoring opportunities.
Yeah.
He'll get his carries in the red zone all the time.
I'm really just
And I'm bumping Laporta up
yeah.
because I think he is going to be that third option,
Yeah, I think so too.
maybe even second option. And
I
then
would,
for your daily fantasy, Goff is actually a streaming candidate, I think, this week.
yeah,
So,
definitely.
anything else for the Titans skill players? They don't
They
have
don't
many
have
of them.
any. They have like they have Tony Pollard and that's it. And the Lions' run defense it was worse without Aiden Hutchinson, so they can be run on now. But ultimately, this goes back into that last game where game script is going to play a big role
Yeah.
because do we see the Titans keeping up with the Lions at all? I don't. I think this game is. I think that the Titans are going to be behind multiple scores pretty early in this game, and they're going to have to pretty much abandon the run in order to keep up. And
Yeah.
it's
Most important question for this game, though, are we getting Will Levis back?
I don't think so. I think we get Mason Rudolph again. I think that they're going to hold him out for another week because he is injured, but I also think they're a little bit using it
Disappointed.
as an excuse to play Rudolph because he played a full game on it 2 games ago. He played the full game and he
Hmm.
was already hurt. But then all of a sudden it's worse enough to where he has to sit out a couple games. Like, come on,
Yeah.
man.
Well, at least he gives us some meme-worthy stuff on the sidelines too.
That's
So
true.
I just wish it was in the game. It'd be a lot better.
The better memes.
Exactly. Like, it would be much gooder. All right. Speaking of gooder, let's talk about the Falcons and Bucks.
That's an interesting one. I'm really curious to see how the Bucks offense looks without Evans and Godwin. I know the the instant question is who takes over as the number one receiver, and you think immediately everybody's mind goes to Jalen McMillan or Trey Palmer, but I think it's actually going to be Sterling Shepard. I can't believe I'm saying that, but you
Yeah.
know McMillan has not been very good in the regular season. I know they loved him in training camp. So, like if it was me and I was doing something for fantasy football, I want McMillan because his ceiling is higher. I
Right.
don't think Sterling Shepard is going to get enough to where you're going to start Sterling Shepard. I think he's going to be like if you need a bye week fill in and you just need somebody to be a safe 5 catch 50-yard type guy, like Sterling Shepard can do that for you. I
Yeah.
don't think he's going to get more than that though.
No, he's now that wide receiver that catches the ball, falls straight to the ground. He is not going to get you anything after the catch,
Yeah,
but he is that trusted option for
exactly.
Baker Mayfield. And as for McMillan, I'm interested to see what happens because he hasn't really. There's not been a need for him to show out with
Yep.
Godwin and Evans just tearing it up so far this year. So we'll see what he does. Definitely start your Falcons. all your Falcons, play them all. Understand that the Bucks are weaker on the ground than they are through the air, but they've been so good at throwing the ball and scoring that we don't see much of their run defense.
Yeah.
But I'm in this one. You're going to see a lot of it, and I think Algier and Bijan are both going to have good days.
Yeah. And on the Bucks side, it doesn't look like you're going to have Bucky Irving because of his toe injury. So, you know,
He practiced in full, didn't he today?
did he?
I thought I saw that on Twitter like 30 minutes ago.
All right. Let me check this real quick. Keep
Yeah,
talking.
Google it, and I'll keep talking. Don't forget about Cade Otton. I think a lot of those targets that you're missing from uh, Evans and Godwin are going to go to the tight end. So this could be a Cade Otton game. If Bucky Irving plays, play him. He's good.
Yeah. According to RotoWire, I see it that Bucky is participating in practice today.
Yeah, he participated. So I mean, I wouldn't play him as an RB1 or RB2. It's low end flex for me. But if you need a safe floor, I think Bucky Irving has a safe floor, low ceiling.
Yeah, that's just because they have, we've talked about it, mouths to feed before. Rashad White's not going anywhere. I think actually Rashad
Mhm.
White's going to catch a lot of passes in this one because of the absence of Godwin and Evans. He might actually be their next best receiver.
Blah, blah.
Prepare to see a lot of pony personnel with two running backs. This is actually this could help Bucky Irving and
Mhm.
Sean Tucker because I think they're going to use Rashad White as more of a receiver. I actually think they're going to have more pony personnel, which is like two running backs on the field at the same time.
Gotcha. All right. Cardinals, Dolphins. The return of Tua.
Return of Tua. He got fully cleared today, I saw, so he is definitely going to be under center. So start Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle with confidence. I am a little bit. I'm interested to see how the offense looks because we've forgotten that Tua played 7 quarters basically before getting hurt, and the offense did not look good in those 7 quarters. Now Waddle and Hill were still good for fantasy because Tua can actually get them the ball, but the offense as a whole didn't look good, which caps their scoring opportunities and stuff like that. So does it look better? Is Mike McDaniels kind of like taking the year off? Is he taking a sabbatical where he doesn't add anything to his offense? It's just there's a lot of intrigue here. And then for the Cardinals, Miami's pass defense has actually been really, really good. They've been the toughest on opposing quarterbacks this whole season. We just haven't really taken note because it's like nobody wants to watch the Dolphins
Yeah, I
games.
think people forget that Jalen Ramsey is still he's
Yeah.
down in Miami now.
Ramsey, Javon Holland's been outstanding. Their
Yeah.
safety, he's like their defense is just really, really good. Just they have a lot of really good pieces. They're very well coached. So we got to bump down Kyler a little bit. And also, I think that we're at the point where if you have another option other than Marvin Harrison Jr., I think you start him because they want to use Harrison as a vertical X receiver, and they're not doing anything to help him. They're not giving him any in breakers. Like whenever you see him targeted, it's right along the sideline, some back shoulder shit, or it's like a deep ball down the sideline, which requires protection. And the Cardinals haven't been able to deliver on that protection.
Yeah.
So, it's just been. I think we get a big Trey McBride game
Mhm.
because I don't see them protecting very well against Miami. I think James Conner has another really good game because, the Chargers defense is pretty good, and James Conner had a monster game in that game. Like he had a bunch of missed tackles forced. Conner is aging very well.
Yeah. He's not aging like me. I age like milk. He
Yeah.
is aging like fine wine
Yep.
or cheese.
But like the good cheese, not the
Yeah. The Gouda cheese.
yeah, not the lunch leaf
Ah.
cheese.
Yeah, I think Tyreek is a smash play here. I think he's got a real good chance to be wide receiver one. He really missed his quarterback. Remember, this is a guy who led the league in receiving last year.
Yeah, before he
So
slowed down,
Tyreek is wide receiver one for me on the week.
he was on
Um,
pace for 2,000 yards before he got you know a little bit banged up at the end of the year last year.
yeah. I'm still playing Trey McBride, James Conner, like you said. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is a low end flex for me. Uh, you know, Kyler's got a beautiful deep ball, but it doesn't matter if you can't throw it deep because you're having to run away all the time.
Yeah.
So
And again, they're very static in their deployment of Marvin Harrison Jr. They
yeah,
don't do
they need
anything.
to move around
Yeah,
and
like
fix the protection issues.
we see with the Vikings with Justin Jefferson. How many places did Justin Jefferson line up the other night? They use him
Mm-hmm.
as a weapon. They move him around, get him running different routes. They set him up to get the ball in the intermediate middle of the field. We saw him do that on a ton of dig routes last night, like 3 or 4 catches in that 15-yard range in the middle of the field. And they
Mm-hmm.
use him as a weapon to get other people open. I remember one play in particular. Yeah, one play in particular, he was lined up in the backfield and he ran out into the slot and it sucked up a corner and they threw it behind him to Addison
Yeah,
because of the attention that he gets. But the Cardinals aren't doing any of that with Marvin Harrison Jr. And I'm not saying that they got to throw him the ball, 10 times, 12 times a game.
I
But
am.
I mean, they spent the 4th overall pick on this guy and he's basically an afterthought in the offense. That doesn't make sense. We're getting into Arthur Smith territory. Why aren't you using him?
Why do you have to bring up Arthur Smith again?
Because I have a self-loathing.
Ah, okay. Ravens and Browns. Finally, Deshaun Watson is gone. The bad man is gone. He can't hurt the Browns anymore.
Until next year.
Yeah, until next year. I mean, the contract's going to hurt the Browns for a
Yeah.
while.
Well, they deserve it. They gave it to him.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But yeah,
Couldn't have happened to a better team.
this is kind of funny because like Deshaun Watson's their starting quarterback, and I don't know of any other team that their starting quarterback gets hurt, and people are like, "All right, this team has a shot now. They're better with their backup." Like maybe the Colts because Richardson's been pretty rough this year, but
Yeah,
aside from that,
that's an understatement.
that's pretty much it. So, yeah, I'm not like super excited to see the Browns offense go against this Ravens defense just because the Ravens defense, I know they haven't been particularly great this year like last year, but it
Mhm.
is still a unit with talent. And I think that they have a talent mismatch against the Browns. I am curious to see Cedric Tillman's usage. Cedric Tillman slid right into Amari Cooper's kind of X receiver role last week. 12 targets, 8 catches, 80 yards. Like that was really promising. He was interesting coming out of college. So, curious to see that. David Njoku's a smash play. I think he might be, based on the uses last week with 14 targets, he might be tight end one the rest of the year, him or Brock Bowers. Them and Kittle are the only 3 I think that are like, I think they're in their own little tier.
Smash plays.
Yeah, they're in their own tier. If you have,
They're in the S tier.
yeah, and then you got like McBride is in a tier. He's in the A tier. You
Tyler
could talk me
Conklin.
in, you could talk me into him for the S tier, but anyways, for the Ravens, you know, I mean that offense is doing so good right now. Lamar Jackson's killing it. Derrick Henry's. I mean, I don't even need to talk about Derrick Henry. That dude's having a year for the ages. Zay Flowers has emerged. Mark Andrews isn't dead. He has more points than Dalton Kincaid this year, even after we buried him after the first, 4 weeks where he did nothing. And
Yeah.
then Rashad Bateman's coming on. Bateman, people forget he was a first-round pick. He has a lot of talent, but
Mhm.
due to injuries, he wasn't really able to get on track. This year, he looks really good.
Yeah. He's shown up, definitely. I'm not ready to eat crow on Mark Andrews yet. There's still some concerning things with his snaps and routes run. They're trending in the right direction, but last week was 4 targets, all in the red zone, 2
Mm-hmm.
touchdowns. So he's your touchdown dependent tight end. Otherwise, he's not getting anything.
Right. Well, given the state of the tight end position, that's enough for a top 10 tight end.
Fair. That's fair. Um, as for the Browns, Jameis Winston, it's always fun to watch, especially when he was with the Bucks, and he'd give you two touchdowns and 2 interceptions each week, or
Yellow
5 and 5.
That
Um,
30-30 season.
yeah, and I don't know if I'm fully on the Cedric Tillman bandwagon yet, but he got a whopping 12 targets last week. I'd like to see him do it again before I'm in on him because he had gotten 2 targets the whole year previously.
So I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that if you look at we talk about X receivers, right? Typically, X receivers are bigger because you
Right.
face more press coverage as an X receiver. Who are the Browns of the receivers? like Amari Cooper was their X receiver, like
Mhm.
almost almost exclusively. Their other receivers are Jerry Jeudy, who's definitely not an X, Elijah
No,
Moore, who's definitely not an X. So Amari
but
Cooper, or
much
Amari
more.
Cooper, Cedric Tillman, he slid right into the X receiver role, which is one that pretty much never comes off the field. So, I'm not saying he's a top 10 play or anything like that, but I am saying that he would be an interesting buy for me in Dynasty, just because somebody else may not be fully in on him either. And this Browns team doesn't exactly have a lot of resources coming up. They don't have a lot of picks. They don't have a lot of money because of a certain albatross contract who we've talked about briefly. So if Cedric Tillman gives them solid play at the X receiver spot, how do they upgrade on that? I don't think they do. So that means you're pretty much guaranteed a guy who's going to grow with the offense. Now, I am concerned what it happens next year because Deshaun Watson proved that he's so bad that even if you're playing every snap with him, it doesn't freaking matter because he can't get you the football.
Yeah, yeah. No, I listen. I don't even think he'll be ready to go at the beginning of the season next year. So I'm hoping they just cut their losses. But
They
knowing the
won't.
Browns, they won't.
Yeah, they won't.
All right, let's talk about something more happy. Let's talk about the Colts and Texans.
Well, that's not really happy. You led me into a trap here. The Colts offense, the only happy thing I have to say is that Jonathan Taylor's coming back. Should be back, I think, based on practice reports. Now, the Texans defense is really good, and Anthony Richardson, as we've mentioned, has not been good. When he's been kept clean, which is when most quarterbacks are the most accurate, he's a 51% completion percentage when kept clean, not under pressure, which is the worst in the NFL by a staggering margin. Trevor Lawrence is the next lowest at 64%. That's an insane ocean-sized gap.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be kept very clean in this one because the Texans defense is very, very good.
Yep.
So, yeah, I don't want to start any Colts players in this game. I don't want to start Richardson. I probably don't want to start Jonathan Taylor simply because he's coming back off of a high ankle sprain, which is tough for running backs to come back from. He may well aggravate the injury. Like, none of the receivers are going to be useful as long as Richardson's completing half of his passes. So all of them are out. And then from the Texans side, my God, does this team miss Nico Collins? Like, I'm watching
Very
here.
much.
Oh my
Very
God,
much.
so bad. That we did get a report yesterday about Nico. He hasn't had any setbacks in his recovery. So as long as he doesn't experience any in the next couple weeks, he's tracking to miss this week and next week and be back the week after that. So just 2 more games that he'll miss, and then he'll be back as long as he doesn't have any setbacks. But this team is still struggling badly on first down. They are having way too many third and longs, which like Stroud can do that for you. He's
Mhm.
awesome. He's leveled up. He's playing so well at QB. But it's not a way to make consistent offense. You can't ask a guy to do that, on every third down in the NFL. It's just not a realistic expectation. They can do it. Like he increases your odds of getting it done, but you still don't want to live that way. And Joe Mixon's been really good, but just whether it's because of the offensive structure or whatever, he hasn't been particularly successful on first down. In fact, his success rate on first down, which is half the yards he needs on first down, which is like 5-yard gain, is about league average, slightly below league average. The Texans as a whole, they're bad. They're one of the worst teams in the league on first and second down. Like whether it be because of penalties, those couple games that Mixon missed, the Texans were abysmal running the football in those games. Like they had a lot of stuff going on. And then, on third and long, that was typically when you'd find Nico for big plays because Nico's the best receiver on the team by a lot.
Yeah.
And now he's gone. So, now you got Steph Diggs, he's a good player, but
Mhm.
he's not what he was a couple years ago. And then you got Tank Dell, who, we've talked about injuries before, and people need to remember that he's coming back off of a broken leg, and he also got shot in the leg in the offseason. So he's not as explosive as he was last year yet. I think that improves as the year goes on. But this team needs to get better on first and second down in order to be the offense that we thought they'd be coming out.
Right. Right. Agreed. They look lost without Nico, and they gotta shake things up a little bit. But luckily, they're playing the Colts, which is like a scrimmage game for them.
Yep.
So it should work itself out there.
I mean, the Colts are getting DeForest Buckner back as well from his high ankle sprain. He was just designated to return. So, that might help run defense because he's still a good player. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the Colts defense, they have
There's
severe
so
lack
many
of
holes
talent.
that
Yeah,
DeForest Buckner isn't going to solve all of them,
no.
as good as he is.
One DeForest Buckner does not a defense make. Yeah.
All right, Saints and Chargers.
All right. So for the Saints side, the positives, we'll go with the positives first. They are getting some players back from injury. They're getting a couple offensive linemen practice this week. Obviously Chris Olave is probably back from his concussion. He practiced. The negative is that it's still going to be Spencer Rattler, and the Chargers defense is still pretty decent. So I don't love the Saints offensive matchup here, especially, now that the Chargers are going to be able to key in on Olave without the threat of Shaheed. So
Well, let
that's
me
not
ask you a
great.
question. Let me ask you a question. You think Bub Means steps into that Shaheed role?
It's possible, but the reason, so it's hard to talk about sometimes like roles, right? Because the
Mhm.
player makes the role in a lot of cases. And Shaheed is so explosive and so fast that he's what makes that kind of vertical flanker role work. Because if you watch those first couple weeks, especially those first couple weeks, where he was hitting those deep balls, the guy is just incredibly fast. He's also a very underrated route runner. As we've
Mhm.
seen, they've gotten him a lot more involved. If you're in a dynasty league, now is a great time to go trade for Shaheed because his usage this year was very real. And I don't think the Saints are going to let him go anytime soon. I think him and Olave are very good complements to each other. So,
It's also going to
again,
depend on who they've got starting at quarterback next year.
I think it'll still be Carr, honestly. But even if it's not, even if they draft somebody in the top 10, like Clint Kubiak has proven that he's gonna be able to get them involved, and he switched up Shaheed's role enough towards not just deep balls like it was last year and the year before that, where for him to have a big game, he had to catch a 50-yard bomb,
Right.
and if he didn't, he wouldn't have a game. But this year, it was a really consistent usage, except for the 1 week where he had a goose egg on 5 targets. But every other week, I think he had like 8 targets at minimum in games that they had to throw. The first 2 weeks, I don't think he had 8 targets because they threw the ball like 15 to 20 times because they were able to run all over the Panthers and Cowboys.
Yeah.
But since then, when they've actually had to throw the ball, he has a really solid target share. And it's not just deep balls, it's intermediate stuff, it's short stuff, it's just stuff to get the ball in his hands because he's so explosive. So you could probably get him right now for a lower end older player, especially for rebuilding teams. That's somebody that a rebuilding team should definitely be targeting because he's not going to help you score points this year and make your draft pick worse. But next year, he should be back fully ready to go.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I'd like to see if Dennis Allen can go one whole press conference without shitting on Country Miller.
It's an impossible challenge that you've just named. It's not going to happen.
uh, that's what I'm most looking forward to in this game.
I'm most looking for so the thing I'm most looking forward to in this game is the Chargers to see. The first 4 weeks, Herbert didn't throw for more than like 140 yards in any one game. They were the run heaviest team in the NFL by a good bit too,
Mm.
despite having Justin Herbert. Now, part of that again was the competition, right? Like they faced the Panthers. You don't need to throw against the Panthers.
No.
You can run on them. But the last 2 weeks, they've been the most pass heavy team in the league in neutral situations, which is, first and second down when your win probability is between 20 and 80%. Because
Which is crazy on a Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman led offense.
It is and it isn't. So you heard Harbaugh and Roman talk about Herbert all offseason. They think the world of Justin Herbert, and as they should. Like the last couple weeks have been some of his best games. He's been outstanding, um, and he's getting healthier. People forget that he had a high ankle sprain. A lot of guys don't even play through that, and he pushed through it. But he still couldn't. He still couldn't move like he normally does. He couldn't protect himself. And then you throw in the fact that both tackles were injured. You throw in the fact that the interior offensive line is among the worst in the league. Like their weapons, if you can call them weapons, are just really bad. Like Lad McConkey's looked really good, but he's banged up right now. He's not
Yeah.
playing 100% of the snaps. So your other weapons that you have are Josh Palmer, who he's not a needle mover. Quentin Johnston, who missed last game himself. You're like your best receiving tight end in this last game was Will Dissly. They had way too much Jalen Reagor for the year 2024 going on, and we saw the Jalen Reagor experience with that 40-something yard catch that he then got stripped inside the 5. You know,
Hmm.
so I'm curious to see if that continues because they recognized that they weren't moving the ball running the football in these last 2 weeks, and they've thrown it more to compensate. So does that continue? Is this going to be what this team is from here on out? Because if it is, Justin Herbert's fantasy value is going to climb. You know, I know those first couple weeks it went down, but if this is what it is, he's going to be back to being a top 5, top 10 QB.
Sorry, my mic died.
Yeah, you're good. I'll keep going while you fix it.
All right, I'm good.
Okay.
Um, who are you guys getting back soon?
DJ Chark
Yes. Yes.
for whatever that's worth.
Yeah. It's kind of sad when you're looking forward to the return of DJ Chark.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, that's
let's
sad. Let's move on to the Bills and Seahawks.
let's do that.
'Cause I got thrown off there. All right. Talk to me about Jackson Smith and Jigba. His role in this offense. He's got good target share percentage, 20.4. He has 21% of his team's air yards, but we're not seeing those JSN games that we wanted to see at the beginning of the year because I was super high on him
Yeah.
coming into this year. I thought this was going to be his breakout year.
You and a lot of people. It just hasn't happened that way. So with JSN, I think we're seeing is that he's fine, right? Like, but he's not a needle mover. I heard on one of the podcasts that I listened to that I think it was the fantasy football recap that somebody compared him to like a souped up Tyler Boyd, and that kind of
I
fits.
don't like that.
You're not getting a ton after the catch. He doesn't
No.
separate on the deep portions of the field, and yeah, he should get a higher target share in this game simply because DK Metcalf isn't playing. But at the same time, DK Metcalf is who is the deep threat in that offense. Like Tyler Lockett's not a deep threat.
Yep.
JSN's not a deep threat. So Metcalf was the one opening space for him to operate. And I just but if he doesn't produce now, then like when is he going to produce? Because DK Metcalf, I don't think he's tracking to play. I know he said he might be able to, but I just
Yeah,
don't see it
I
happening.
think this is going to be a Jake Bobo game there in the X.
I think it's
But
going to be him at the X. I think it's going to be a run heavy game. I think Kenneth Walker's going to get a lot of touches in this game because the Bills' run defense is not good. The Bills just struggled to defend running backs out of the backfield. Kenneth
yep,
Walker's going to have a really big game. For the Bills side, I'm curious to see how much Amari Cooper plays after he logged like a 40% snap share last week. He should be more familiar with the offense. I mean, it's only a matter of time before Amari Cooper plays 100% of the snaps, just because I know we talked about, the Browns don't really have another X receiver other than Cedric Tillman, right?
hmm
Well, the Bills damn sure don't have another X receiver other than Amari Cooper. So he's going to be on the field for 100% of the snaps when he really learns this offense. And if we see the same kind of usage that we did last week with that kind of snap share, oh man, it's Amari Cooper to the friggin' moon. This is a top 10 wide receiver play if that continues the rest of the year with
yeah,
the target share and the air yards. I mean, he was. They moved him around a little bit too, like his touchdown catch. He was in the slot.
Yeah, I liked that move a lot more than I liked the Devontae to the Jets move. I
Yeah,
think it helps the Bills a lot more. Um,
I think so too.
I'm curious to see what happens with Cook. I don't know if Ray Davis is going to continue to steal work from him, or if it's going to go back to more of what we saw at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I think with that situation, I think once that toothpaste is out of the bottle, you can't really put it back. I mean, Ray Davis has looked really good. Like you can't take anything away from him. He's averaging last week. He averaged 8 yards a carry. Granted, it was a small sample size, but that's the type of stuff that gets coaches' attention. And then when he was the lead back, like he's a bigger running back than James Cook, and it seems like how the Bills want to run the ball, Ray Davis might be a better fit for it than what James Cook's bringing. James Cook's a really good running back, taking nothing away from him. He's never going to be phased out of this offense or anything crazy like that. But, right now it's like a 70-30 James Cook led backfield. And even
Hmm.
that is lower than what it was
Yeah,
earlier in the year, where it's 80-20, 90-10 type deal. Well, is there, is it going to start switching more? Is it going to be 50-50? You know, because again, Ray Davis has looked really good.
yeah, and I think with Amari Cooper it opens up this offense a little bit as well,
Mhm.
and we're going to see higher scoring games. You're going to see better games for Dalton Kincaid going forward. I think it just opens up a whole lot for this team.
Yeah.
Anything else from this game?
Nope.
All right,
Thing.
Bears and Commanders.
Bears.
I know your boy is starting. I know you love Mariota, and I know he looked good last week,
Yes.
but it was Carolina,
Yep. That's
and the Bears are quite the opposite
yeah,
of
the Bears are
Carolina.
really good defense. So I don't love the matchup for Mariota. I am downgrading any Washington players I've got. Like Terry McLaurin, I know he had a really nice game last week, even with
Mm.
Mariota. He had 7 catches, 98 yards. That's a really good game. Brian Robinson looked good last week. The Bears defense is just so freaking good. And there's nothing against Mariota, but he's a backup quarterback. It doesn't matter how good your backup quarterback is. Going against the Bears, that's not great.
Yeah,
It's going to get a downgrade, especially when your starter is doing what Jaden Daniels did. Now, I do have more faith in Cliff Kingsbury than I did at the beginning of the year, so I don't think this offense is going to just be completely non-functional. I think they're going to have some moments in this game, but I just don't see how they score a lot of points. I just can't see it.
yeah,
And
I
then,
I get that, and um, man, it's gonna be tough because I made that statement on Twitter about Brian Thomas Jr. not being a number one wide receiver
mm-hmm.
against the Bears, and I was right.
Yep,
And that's going to be the same thing with Terry McLaurin. I am not starting Terry McLaurin against the Bears, especially with Mariota throwing the ball. I'm just not going to do it.
no, it's a bad idea. And then from the Bears side, the Commanders' defense has not been very good overall this year, but the last couple games, it's been a lot better. Now, 2 of those games were against just horrendous competition. I think it was the Panthers and Browns, I want to say. So, yeah. But one of those games was against the Ravens. And yeah, they didn't shut the Ravens down or anything crazy like that. But, they made the Ravens work for it, at least.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think it's going to be quite the cakewalk that everybody kind of thinks that it's going to be for Chicago. Now, I do think that Caleb Williams is playing at a super high level. Shane Waldron, I know we crapped on him the first couple of weeks. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's not really any designed touches to Gerald Everett and DeAndre Carter anymore. So the
He heard
offense
you.
is looking,
He
yeah, you
listens.
heard me. So the offense is looking a lot better. What I'm really curious to see, because most of the stuff we already know, Keenan Allen's going to be your third down guy, your red zone guy. DJ Moore is probably the best of the 3 receivers on this team. But how much does Rome Odunze's role change coming out of the bye? Because he's getting open on film, but he's not usually the first read in the concept, right? So the bye week is when coaches generally do their self scouting.
Right.
I mean, if I was a coach for the Bears and I saw him getting open as often as he is, you probably rotate more of your designs so that he is the first read in the target or in the progression. So I'm curious to see if that happens because again, Odunze has been good, but there's been a lot of mouths to feed, and then the last couple of weeks too, the run game has been really good.
Hmm.
So this is a tougher defense to run against than it is to pass against. I think that ultimately Chicago is going to have to pretty much win this game through the air, and I just for the rest of season, really not just this week, but I'm curious to see how Odunze's role changes
Right.
or if it changes because again they do have a lot of mouths to feed. Cole Kmet's like they've really consolidated that offense to the three receivers and Cole Kmet. Like in that last game, I don't think anybody else, any of the other receivers, was over like a 10% route share or some shit like that. And all three of those guys, all three of the main guys, were 85, 90%. So, they've really consolidated it, which is great for fantasy football purposes. But that means that they're all competing with each other for targets.
Right. All right. We are running short on time again. We did that thing where I let you talk too much. Panthers and Broncos. It's going to be a game. The one thing I do want to make sure everyone gets for this game is start Javonte Williams. He's a smash play against the Panthers, and then sell high
Yeah.
after the game because he gets the Ravens, Chiefs, Falcons, Raiders, and Browns next.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
I do want to point out that, welcome back, Bryce Young. Go face the Broncos, who are a top 3 defense. Good
Yeah.
luck.
Everybody on the Broncos defense eats, and they're going to have Bryce Young for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Bo Nix is also running enough. They seem to be leaning more into his legs, too. So he is a solid super flex starter and a QB2 that can fill in for bye weeks and stuff like that. In the last game, he had 75 rushing yards. He has 3 rushing touchdowns. That gives him a nice, safe floor.
Yeah. All right, Chiefs, Raiders. D-Hop's first game.
Yep.
What happens?
How much does he play? How do they use him? We're not really. I don't think we're really going to get the full answer to that this week because it's going to take just like with Cooper last week where he played 40 snaps. He just got on the team. He's not going to know everything. It's going to take him time to get into the offense. But I do think that they're going to draw stuff up for him because he is that X receiver the Chiefs haven't had, much like those other teams. X receivers are hard to find. Hopkins was great for a long time. He's not that guy anymore. He's not great, but he's still a useful player, and they haven't even had that. That
Right.
whole offense is, yeah.
I'm curious to see if they continue running the 2 tight end look more with D-Hop, but we'll see. And then on the Raiders side,
Oh, real quick, one more
yeah.
note on the Chiefs. So, Xavier Worthy is a polarizing player. And I saw this stat on Twitter. I can't remember who it's from right now. But in press coverage situations, Xavier Worthy has run 27 routes against press coverage, and he's gotten 3 targets and 0 catches. Basically, when you get your hands on him, the play is over.
Needs to bulk up in the offseason.
I just don't think he can, man. That frame doesn't lend itself to getting bigger.
Maybe. Raiders, they're starting Gardner Minshew because the only other option is Desmond Ridder, who both the Falcons and Cardinals got rid of.
Man.
You like what I did there?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that was nice. But
yeah, Bowers is the only thing you need to know about the Raiders.
Yeah, we've already spent too much time on the Raiders.
Yep. All right, Cowboys, Niners.
This is going to be a fun one. So I'm really fascinated to see what happens with the Niners offense because we've talked about skill position issues at other places. Oh man, those Niners having the season from hell. Because if you look at their receiver room, we've talked about the low, team, whatever, doesn't have an X receiver. Well, the Niners, out of their whole receiver room, Brandon Ayuk was probably the guy they could least afford to lose because Ayuk is their X receiver.
Right.
And yeah, he's not having a great year. He wasn't having a great year, but nobody else on that team is bringing the same thing he is. Ricky Pearsall is not an X receiver. He's a good man coverage beater, but at the same time, he got shot in the chest 2 months ago, and he's not 100% back yet. So he's struggled to beat man coverage last week against the Chiefs. He was a 50% success rate, according to Matt Harmon, who tracked that game. You got Debo Samuel, who's not a man coverage beater and coming back from pneumonia. So who knows how much he's going to play. Jawan Jennings, he's not an X receiver. He is a reliable player, but he's also dealing with a hip injury that kept him out last week. And I think the week before that, I don't know if he's going to play. But like, there's a real chance that we might get the starting receivers for the Niners being Chris Conley, who's I found out was still in the league today, and Ricky Pearsall, who is again got shot 2 months ago, or Jacob Cowing, the rookie out of Arizona, 4th round pick. Like, yikes! That's like
Yeah.
nothing against those guys. I think they're all good players, except for Conley. He's a special teamer. But the other two guys, Cowing, he showed some promise at Arizona. Pearsall showed some stuff. Obviously, he was a 1st round pick, but Pearsall's not 100%. Cowing is a 5'8" rookie. Like,
Yeah. And I do want to point out that Jordan Mason is also banged up and has been limited in practice.
same
If
Kittle
you
too.
have him, maybe pick up Isaac Guerrero, or however you say that name.
I did see a report though that Christian McCaffrey, they think he's going to be back in like week 10.
I did see that today.
Yeah,
I'll believe it when I see it.
same.
As for the Cowboys, you're
You,
starting CD.
yeah, you're starting
You're
C.
starting CD and you're starting Jake Ferguson.
You might start Rico Dowdle as a flex, but that's it.
Yeah.
There's not much else there.
No, that defense is really bad. I really want to see what Ricky Pearsall can do against it.
Yeah.
Moving on to the Giants and Steelers.
All right.
I think my bold prediction for this week is that we see Tommy DeVito come into this game sometime after halftime because Daniel Jones has been sacked 30 times and they don't want they don't want to lose
Drew Lock.
Drew Lock.
That is a very bold prediction, and I wouldn't put it past him because the Giants' offensive line, which was already not good, they lost Andrew Thomas for the
Yeah.
season,
And he
and
was their best offensive lineman.
by far their best. Like he's one of the best left tackles in the league. Period.
Yeah.
And then the Giants lost him, and man, they don't have a single good player on that offensive line anymore. And they got a quarterback who sees the field a little slow, gets rid of the ball a little slow. So
Yeah.
now all these things are compounding. I mean, I watched bits and pieces of that Eagles game last week, and it felt like every time, especially on Red Zone, which I had like the sound on, every time they cut back to the Giants game, it was me watching the Eagles get through the line really quick. Daniel Jones like double clutch and get sacked. Double clutch gets sacked. And
Yeah.
7 times. So this is a really tough matchup for them.
Just throw the ball to Neighbors on every play, and we'll be fine.
Honestly.
Neighbors is the only person on that team I'm starting probably the rest of the season.
I mean, if you're really desperate, if your injuries are really bad, I mean, Wan'Dale Robinson is like a PPR scam of all scams because even last week he had 6 catches. He only had 23 yards, but he had 6 catches. He's 3rd in the NFL in receptions and like 44th in receiving yards.
Yeah. The Steelers, I've been down on Najee all year. These last couple weeks have been great for Najee, and I'm ready to start him again. Which means he's probably going to throw up a goose egg, and you know what? I would deserve that.
Yep.
I would deserve all of that.
Najee's running hard. It reminds me a little bit of a couple of years, like 6-7 years ago when Derrick Henry was rotating. He was a rotational back with Tennessee, right? Because he didn't run like his size. And then he remembered, oh, right, I'm 6'4", 250 pounds, or 6'3", 250, whatever he is. And he started running like it.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of feels like the same thing is happening with Najee because he's 230. He's not quite Henry size, but he's close. And for a while, he was running like he was 50 pounds lighter.
Yeah,
like
he was trying to beat people to the sidelines, and you're not going to do that, man. Just run them over.
Yes.
You're bigger than some linebackers.
Yeah. These last couple weeks, it seems like he's gotten back to delivering punishment on runs and running his ass off. So, yeah, that's really cool to see. I'm curious to see how much Jalen Moron gets involved in this game. It kind of starting to feel like one of those years that's just not going to come together for him because he had the hamstring out of camp, and then he aggravated it in the first game. Like he's just had a lot of various injuries, and just like we talked about, those injuries do take something off of like explosiveness.
Yeah. Also startable this weekend for the Steelers is going to be, I think Russ
And
is
so it's Pickens
startable
too.
here in Pickens,
Yeah,
both startable in this game.
for sure.
And that's all we got. That's all the games.
That's all.
Have a great weekend. Maybe go get some tacos and margaritas because that's what I'm kind of. I really want tacos and margaritas right now. So go have those for me because I can't right now. Relax and watch some football.
Watch a
And
lot
we'll
of
talk
football.
to you again on Monday.
Yep.
Bye.